Good day, friends. I'm Kerry Dillinger. This is Bible Class Topics. You've joined us for another topical study. We're going to take a reading from Song of Solomon. I don't think I've ever taken a reading from Song of Solomon in the over 300 videos that we've posted to this channel. So today, Song of Solomon, we want to talk about the little foxes. Song of Solomon 2, verse 15. Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that spoil the vineyards, for our vineyards are in blossom. Let's read into the context here, and we'll go back to verse 8 of chapter 2, and we'll read down through verse 15. Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verses 8 through 15. The voice of my beloved. Behold, he comes leaping over the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Behold, there he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows, looking through the lattice. My beloved speaks and says to me, Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away, for behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth. The time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree ripens its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. O my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the crannies of the cliff, let me see your face. Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet, and your face is lovely. Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that spoil the vineyards, for our vineyards are in blossom. In the Bible, God often uses this world's creatures to teach us life lessons. In Isaiah 1 verse 3, Isaiah uses the ox and the donkey. In Psalm 32:9, David uses the horse and the mule. Job 12:7, Job refers to the beasts and the birds. There are other lessons to be learned in the Bible from the stork, the turtle, the dove, the crane, ants, locusts, the coney, the spider, and many more. Here, little foxes are used to illustrate a lesson for us. Oh, they sound cute, don't they? The little foxes. Well, this is a word in the Bible that could also be interpreted as jackals. The foxes, the jackals. These little foxes are widespread in the early time of Palestine, in the Old Testament times, and they were very fond of grapes. They would often burrow in holes and hedges around the gardens, and unless strictly watched, they would destroy the whole vineyards. Their flesh was sometimes eaten in autumn when they were grown fat from feeding on the grapes. Thus Theocritus says, I hate the foxes with their bushy tails, which numerous spoil the grapes of Meekness vines when they fall the evening shades. And Aristophanes compared soldiers to foxes because they consume the grapes of the countries through which they pass. This is Conway quoting Burroughs in the Pulpit Commentary, Volume 9, pages 57 and 58. So here's our little foxes, not the cute little critters that I showed you perhaps on the front slide today, but indeed some pests. We must recognize the need to bear fruit in our own lives. John 15:1 through 8, Jesus says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word I've spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself, unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he's thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered and thrown into the fire and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. But this, my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit and so prove to be my disciples. Later in the New Testament, Paul the Apostle lists the fruit of the Spirit we must cultivate and bear. Galatians 5:22 through 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. Jesus is the vine, we're the branches. We have fruit to bear, but we must be careful in our cultivation, and we must watch for the little foxes that will spoil the vines. You ran well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? Paul said in Galatians 5 verse 7. Well, Paul asked those who had allowed the little foxes to run rampant in their lives. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? It's the little foxes. Notice that the vines are not lost because they're cut down, uprooted, or hindered from bearing fruit. The vines grow and bear fruit, but little negligences, small indulgences that are not watched and curbed, and then the fruit is spoiled on the vine. The little foxes that can spoil the fruit of the Spirit then are the small vices, the slight attitudes that we often overlook. They are fox-like when they slyly sneak up on us and overtake us spiritually. In Galatians 6 and verse 1, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. And keep watch on yourselves, lest you too be tempted. Let's take a few moments now and consider some of these little foxes that spoil the fruit that we should bear. First of all, selfishness spoils love. Selfishness is the little fox of our time. The media have even named the previous generation as the me generation. Think of the selfishness of King Saul, 1 Samuel 20, verses 30 and 31. Oh, he wanted to get rid of David. For as long as the son of Jesse lives on earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established. Therefore, send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die. Then Jonathan, Saul's son, David's best friend, answered Saul his father, why should he be put to death? What has he done? Saul's selfishness destroyed his love for God. It destroyed his love for David. It destroyed his love for Jonathan, his only son. It destroyed his love for himself. Selfishness spoils love. Discontent spoils joy. Think about Haman's discontent. Remember, Haman hated the Jews. He wanted them obliterated. Luckily, I should say blessedly, Esther, the queen, saved the Jewish people. We'll look in Esther chapter 5, verses 11 through 13. And Haman recounted to them the splendor of his riches, the number of his sons, all the promotions with which the king had honored him, and how he advanced to him above the officials and the servants of the king. And then Haman said, even Queen Esther, let no one but me come with the king to the feast she prepared. And tomorrow also I'm invited by her, together with the king, yet all this is worth nothing to me, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Haman had a good job. He had a good family. Despite all the good things he possessed, he allowed a little discontent to spoil everything. Just because he would see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the gate, his entire day would be ruined. I'll leave you to read the rest of the story in Esther and see what Haman's final undoing was. However, what about us? Well, we can allow discontent to spoil our joy. God has given us so much that blesses us and gives us joy. Letting the little fox of discontentment settle in our hearts will spoil our joy. It's easy to see the discontentment on some people's faces. Can some people see the discontentment on ours? Worry spoils peace. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, "Therefore do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For after all these things the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knows that you need all of these things." When Darius had to throw Daniel in the lion's den because of some ignorance on his part in making a law, he could not sleep. His worry over the possible loss of Daniel kept him from sleeping. Daniel 6 verse 19, "And the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste to the den of lions." Well, some, like Darius, lie awake at night and they worry about tomorrow. Do you allow worry to spoil the peace of your sleep? You know, Martha allowed the little fox of distraction to spoil her peace. In Luke 10:42, Jesus looked at Martha, who had been distracted by preparations that she felt needed to be made for the Lord, and got onto her sister Mary for not helping her. Jesus said, "But one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her." What worries do you have that take your mind off the good part? Impatience spoils long suffering. Hebrews 10:35 and 36, "Therefore do not cast away your confidence, which has great reward, for you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise." It makes me think of the apostles James and John, the brothers, the sons of thunder as they were known, and their impatience. Luke 9:52 through 56, he sent messengers, that is, Jesus sent messengers ahead of him, who went and entered a village of the Samaritans to make preparations for him. But the people did not receive him, because his face was set toward Jerusalem. And when his disciples, James and John, saw it, they said, "Lord, do you want us to tell fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" But Jesus turned and rebuked them, and they went on to another village. Impatience, then, is a sly fox. It steals our long suffering towards others, and it attempts to excuse our bad behavior. Bitterness spoils kindness. The bitterness of the Pharisees had hardened their hearts. Listen to Mark 3, verses 1 through 5. Jesus entered the synagogue again, and a man was there who had withered hand. So they watched him closely, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand, "Step forward." Then he said to them, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" But they kept silent. And when he had looked around at them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. Some have allowed bitterness to spoil any kindness that they might have toward others. Laziness spoils goodness. Let him who stole steal no longer, but let him rather labor, working with his hands, what is good, that he may have something to give him who has a need. And the proverb writer in chapter 24, verses 30 and 31, "I went by the field of the lazy man, and by the vineyard of the man devoid of understanding. There it was, all overgrown with thorns. Its surface was covered with nettles. Its stone wall was broken down." Is it just me, or does it seem the goodness has gone out of our communities in the last few years? Perhaps laziness is what has taken it away. The sweet fruit of moral uprightness quickly rots when sloth replaces the desire to work. Doubt spoils our faith. John 20:25, the other disciples therefore said to him, "We have seen the Lord." They're talking to Thomas, the one we call Doubting Thomas. So he said to them, Thomas said, "Unless I see in his hands the prints of the nails, and put my finger into the prints of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." We sometimes get on to Thomas, but in his boots we would probably been exactly the same. What? You've seen the Lord? No, you haven't. We all have questions. The problem comes when we do not actively seek answers to our problems. Some allow little foxes of doubt to spoil their faith. They do not take care of their doubts. They do not look for answers. They do not seek out the evidence. In Matthew 7:7 and 8, Jesus said, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened unto you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened." Pride will spoil meekness. Uzziah's pride spoiled his meekness in 2 Chronicles 26:15 and 16, and he made devices in Jerusalem, invented by skillful men, to be on the towers and the corners, to shoot arrows and large stones, so his fame spread far and wide, for he was marvelously helped till he became strong. But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction, for he transgressed against the Lord his God by entering the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. Uzziah got too big for his britches, as my granny would say. His pride spoiled his meekness. What about the women of Jerusalem in Isaiah's time? Isaiah 3:16 and 17, "Moreover, the Lord says, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with outstretched necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, making a jingling with their feet, therefore the Lord will strike with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will uncover their secret parts." Pride spoils meekness. Love of pleasure spoils our self-control. Think about the prodigal son in Luke 15. Why did he want his money? Why did he want his inheritance? Where did he want to go? Well, not many days after he received his inheritance, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and wasted his possessions with prodigal living. Proverbs 23:1-5, "When you sit down to eat with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat if you're a man given to appetite. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. Do not overwork to be rich, because of your own understanding it will cease. Will you set your eyes on that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away like an eagle toward heaven." By faith, Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater than the riches and treasures in Egypt, for he looked to the reward. We must overcome the little foxes. We must overcome selfishness with love. We must overcome discontent with joy. We must overcome our worry with peace, our impatience with long-suffering, our bitterness with kindness, our laziness with goodness, our doubt with faith, our pride with meekness, and our love of pleasure with self-control. We must strengthen ourselves in the Lord and in his word, and we must apply the fruit of the Spirit. The outline for this lesson is published and available for download at www.padfield.com. The outline was written by Wayne Greason from an idea he got from reading Dwight Moody. The photo today of the little foxes comes from Tomas Annunziata over on Pexels.com. Thank you for studying with us today. Your continued support of the channel is greatly, greatly appreciated. And we look forward, Lord willing, to be back with you in just a few days with some other lessons from Bible class topics. Until then, may God bless.